I had just finished a call with my half-sister, but I accidentally left the call connected. "Hey, the doctor just told me Dad's medication costs have gone up again this month, so please transfer the money as soon as you can. My name is Priscilla, a 29-year-old businesswoman managing a growing cybersecurity firm in Tampa, Florida. For years, I carried the heavy responsibility of sending $2,000 every month to cover my father's expensive heart treatment. I never questioned it because I believed it was my duty. But one ordinary afternoon in my quiet office changed everything. After finishing what I thought was another emotional phone call, I tossed my phone onto my wooden desk without realizing the call was still connected. The line stayed open for exactly 7 minutes and 38 seconds while I prepared to review some important work documents. A few moments later, I heard strange rustling noises coming from the speaker, followed by a burst of laughter that immediately caught my attention. Instead of hanging up, I stayed silent and listened. What I overheard next exposed a shocking family conspiracy that ultimately saved me from a devastating betrayal. Welcome to the Revenge Mode channel, where we share the most shocking stories of family betrayal and unforgettable revenge. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any part of this incredible story. A sharp, mocking laugh coming through the phone made me stop in my tracks. The emotional voices I had heard just moments earlier were gone. Instead, I recognized the real voices of my stepmother, Catherine, and my half-sister, Mariah. They were laughing together, celebrating how easily they had fooled me. I could even hear crystal glasses clinking as they toasted to their latest success inside my childhood home. "See, Mom, I told you she'd send the money. She's basically our family's personal ATM. Of course she is, sweetheart. Your rich sister has always been too blinded by family loyalty to question any of my medical updates." Mariah laughed while Catherine proudly agreed with her. That was the moment I learned the horrifying truth about my father, Nicholas. Catherine admitted she had paid someone to forge my father's medical records. In reality, he only had mild high blood pressure that required inexpensive daily medication. She had deliberately turned it into a fake life-threatening heart condition to keep the money flowing from my bank account. The revelations only got worse. Mariah openly bragged about using the $2,000 I sent every month to pay off her credit card debt and fund expensive shopping trips. None of the money had gone toward hospital bills or medication. She even laughed about buying a luxury designer handbag with the very money I believed was saving my father's life. Every payment I made had been part of a carefully planned scam that preyed on my love for my family, but they weren't finished. Catherine then revealed an even bigger plan. She told Mariah to start convincing me that Dad needed a better place to recover. Their real goal was to create another fake medical emergency and pressure me into buying a luxury apartment in the upscale Water Street district. Catherine carefully explained how they planned to convince me to transfer the expensive property deed entirely into Mariah's name by claiming it would provide fake tax benefits. They were literally plotting to take a multi-million-dollar property away from me while pretending to care about a sick old man. A wave of shock rushed through my body, but it quickly faded, leaving behind a chilling sense of clarity. My hands rested on the polished wooden desk without shaking as I resisted the urge to scream into the phone or confront them immediately. Instead, I stayed completely silent, refusing to alert those two greedy parasites to their costly technological mistake. Leaning toward my computer, I quickly opened the professional audio recording software I normally used for important business meetings. I quietly recorded every second of that 7-minute and 38-second conversation, securing the undeniable evidence I would need for what came next. On Monday morning, the calm atmosphere inside my favorite coffee shop stood in sharp contrast to the chaos inside my mind. I sat across from my best friend, Chloe, and quietly slid my phone across the table before playing the recording. Watching the horror spread across her face finally broke the calm expression I had been forcing myself to maintain. A few bitter tears escaped before I quickly wiped them away. That was the only moment I allowed myself to break down. I needed a clear mind if I wanted to destroy those greedy parasites through the legal system instead of wasting my energy on grief. As soon as I left the cafe, I drove straight to my lawyer Donovan's downtown office. I handed him the original audio file and asked him to review it carefully and explain our legal options. He listened to the recording several times, his expression growing more serious with each replay. He carefully examined the legal consequences of their scheme while reviewing the financial records I had brought regarding the monthly medical payments. Finally, he leaned forward across his large glass desk and gave his initial opinion. "Priscilla, this goes far beyond a family dispute. It may involve wire fraud and forged medical records under federal law. I won't let them keep spending my hard-earned money anymore," I replied. "Please start every legal procedure needed to throw them out." Donovan nodded and immediately began preparing a timeline for collecting additional financial records from my bank. He explained that building a strong case would require every fake receipt they had ever used to justify those imaginary hospital expenses. Just then, my phone vibrated on the glass table. Catherine had sent a long message along with several high-resolution photos of another set of forged hospital medication bills, complete with fake clinic stamps. She claimed Dad was suffering severe chest pains and urgently needed more expensive treatment. The timing of her message showed exactly how determined she was to keep exploiting my love for my father. Disgust rose in my throat as I stared at the fake medical documents on my screen. Swallowing my anger, I decided to keep playing their game. I replied with a sympathetic message, promising to send the money immediately. I wrote about how heartbroken I was over his supposed condition before casually steering the conversation toward the luxury apartment project she had mentioned before. I asked how the project was coming along, hoping to draw her out. Catherine took the bait without the slightest suspicion, eagerly responding to my sudden interest in the real estate investment. She quickly replied with overwhelming excitement, immediately suggesting that we tour the expensive property together to ensure his future comfort during this supposed recovery period. Within minutes, she had booked an official viewing appointment for the three of us to visit the luxurious model apartment later that same week. Her greed completely overshadowed any sense of caution, perfectly setting the stage for the trap Donovan was carefully building. On Wednesday afternoon, cool winds carrying salty moisture from the bay swept through the luxurious lobby of the Water Street apartment complex. I confidently stepped into the spacious entrance and immediately spotted Catherine standing beside Mariah near the reception desk. The moment they noticed me crossing the polished marble floor, both women put on carefully rehearsed expressions of deep concern. They let out dramatic sighs and forced fake tears whenever they mentioned the supposed worsening of Dad's health. Their performance would have convinced almost anyone who hadn't already heard the incriminating phone call safely stored on my computer. We toured the spacious apartment with its stunning panoramic city views while the real estate agent explained the building's premium amenities. Mariah made little effort to hide her greed as she walked through the empty rooms, pointing out expensive upgrades she suddenly wanted. She shamelessly insisted that Dad needed the finest designer furniture available, claiming he deserved a luxurious environment to recover properly. Watching her exploit our father's imaginary illness to justify high-end interior decorations took every ounce of my self-control to keep a calm, unreadable expression. Eventually, we gathered around the large dining table to discuss the financial details of the purchase. Catherine leaned forward with a sickeningly sweet smile and presented her bold proposal about the ownership documents. "Priscilla, letting Mariah put her name on the property deed will help you avoid countless future tax complications. Think of it as our way of sharing the responsibility." "That sounds reasonable," I replied. "But I'll need his original medical records so my corporate finance department can verify everything before I pay the full purchase price with a direct check." I maintained a calm expression throughout the entire discussion, never revealing the slightest hint of suspicion. I played the role of the generous older sister who would happily spend a fortune to solve any family problem without asking difficult questions. Agreeing to buy the property outright instead of applying for a traditional mortgage perfectly matched their expectations. My apparent willingness to spend such an enormous amount of money blinded them to the legal trap quietly closing around them. Requesting the original medical records was the final piece needed to secure that trap. I deliberately presented it as a routine corporate requirement so neither of them would question my true intentions. Getting the original documents with Catherine's signatures would give Donovan the solid evidence he needed to pursue a federal fraud case. Catherine smiled confidently and accepted my condition without a moment's hesitation. She truly believed she was in complete control, convinced she had successfully manipulated my devotion to our father. We ended the viewing by agreeing to finalize the property transfer at Donovan's private law office. Both women walked out of the elegant lobby looking completely victorious, unaware of the legal consequences waiting for them. Exactly 10 days after that life-changing phone call, the final pieces of my plan rested neatly on my polished oak desk. Donovan personally delivered a confidential investigative report prepared by a respected private detective agency. The report contained clear evidence that the medical clinic responsible for those alarming heart disease certificates was nothing more than a fraudulent shell company. Investigators found that the listed business address was actually an abandoned warehouse, not a functioning medical facility. The clinic that issued these medical certificates is a shell entity with no registered medical license in the federal system, Donovan said while pointing to the photographs included in the report. The investigation also revealed that the fake clinic had created official-looking medical letterheads to trick my corporate finance department into releasing the funds without raising internal audit concerns. At the same time, K.H. Lowe used her professional corporate connections to legally obtain the relevant financial records from several banking institutions. Those statements clearly showed that the $2,000 I had transferred every month went directly toward paying off Mariah's maxed-out credit card accounts. The transaction history revealed extravagant spending at luxury boutiques instead of legitimate medical bills, hospital treatments, or prescription expenses. Chloe even managed to cross-reference the exact dates of the hospital invoices with Mariah purchasing expensive designer items to establish an undeniable timeline of financial abuse. Excellent. Cleverly insert a clause guaranteeing the authenticity of those medical records right into the middle of the purchasing contract to permanently lock all their escape routes. I instructed him firmly after reviewing the overwhelming financial proofs. I subsequently decided to execute an unannounced evening visit to my childhood home, simply to personally verify the actual physical condition of Dad. We shared a quiet meal together discussing mundane daily activities before I subtly brought up the topic of changing his residential environment. I cleverly directed our casual dinner conversation toward future living arrangements while carefully observing his genuine facial reactions to my probing questions. He looked completely bewildered by my vague hints concerning residential relocations or luxurious lifestyle upgrades in the downtown area. His visible confusion provided the absolute confirmation I needed to prove he remained completely ignorant regarding their greedy real estate scheme involving the Water Street property. Armed with this undeniable mountain of factual evidence, Donovan proceeded to carefully draft an incredibly sophisticated dummy real estate purchasing agreement specifically designed for our upcoming meeting. He masterfully embedded a lethal legal stipulation buried deep within the complex property transfer paperwork to spring our meticulously planned trap. This specific contractual clause legally bound the primary signatory to assume full criminal liability regarding the absolute authenticity of all submitted medical documentation. Signing that specific piece of paper would instantly transform their petty family deception into a highly documented federal felony, leaving no room for subsequent legal negotiation. We aggressively accelerated our final preparation timeline since the designated signing appointment was rapidly approaching by the end of the week. Donovan requested my presence at his downtown law firm during the late afternoon to conduct a comprehensive technical rehearsal inside his spacious glass meeting room. We spent several hours meticulously calibrating the high-resolution projector responsible for displaying those incriminating financial statements onto the large blank wall. I also thoroughly tested the surround sound system multiple times to ensure the recorded audio file played with maximum acoustic clarity without any potential technical glitches interrupting the playback. We systematically eliminated any possibility of equipment failures to guarantee the impending confrontation would execute flawlessly when those two women finally walked through the office doors at 9:00 on Friday morning. The atmosphere inside the downtown law office felt bizarrely suffocating despite the central air conditioning system operating at maximum capacity. Dad cautiously entered the spacious glass meeting room first, while being closely followed by Catherine trailing right alongside a highly arrogant Mariah. Those two women deliberately dressed themselves in ridiculously extravagant designer outfits that felt completely inappropriate for a standard morning legal meeting regarding a sick relative. Mariah proudly clutched an exceptionally expensive leather handbag secretly purchased directly with my hard-earned money, while constantly displaying a deeply condescending attitude toward the entire office staff. "Hey receptionist, bring me a glass of filtered water with some fresh lemon immediately. I do not have all day to wait around for these tedious procedures," Mariah rudely commanded a passing legal assistant. The completely unapologetic tone in her demanding voice further highlighted her toxic sense of entitlement that had grown exponentially since they began stealing my corporate income. Observing the intimidating formal environment of the prestigious corporate law firm, Dad clearly exhibited visible confusion regarding his required physical presence at this specific location today. He nervously glanced around the massive polished boardroom table while struggling to comprehend why buying a simple family apartment required such intense high-level legal oversight. Catherine swiftly leaned intimately close to his ear to whisper a highly practiced lie about this gathering merely being a standard administrative procedure strictly required for wealthy family investments. Her smoothly delivered soothing deception successfully calmed his rising suspicions for the moment as he obediently took a designated seat near the edge of the long glass table. Donovan strode purposefully into the conference room, radiating an aura of chilling professional authority that instantly commanded absolute silence from every single person present inside the room. He forcefully tossed a massive stack of complex legal documents onto the reflective glass surface to officially commence the crucial real estate acquisition meeting without offering any friendly greetings. The highly seasoned attorney immediately coordinated the formal proceedings by strictly requesting official government identification cards from all involved parties to accurately verify their legal presence on the documents. He carefully examined each plastic identification card before handing them back to their respective owners with a completely blank expression, revealing nothing. Following our carefully rehearsed plan, I kept a calm expression while politely asking Catherine to hand over the original medical records. She immediately flashed a smug smile and confidently slid the thick manila folder across the polished table toward me. Her expression clearly reflected the satisfaction of someone convinced she was about to secure a massive financial reward without consequences. Donovan quickly pulled out the medical commitment form hidden beneath the main property agreement and placed it in front of my stepmother. "Catherine, the law requires complete transparency. Please sign this medical commitment form before we proceed with transferring this multi-million-dollar property," Donovan said coldly. Without the slightest hesitation, she picked up the luxury fountain pen and signed her full name on the dotted line. By signing that document, she officially committed federal perjury right in front of a licensed attorney. The moment she finished, the pen cap snapped shut with a sharp click that sounded like a prison cell door closing. Our carefully planned setup was finally complete, and it was time to pull back the curtain and expose their deception. At exactly 10:15 that morning, I silently nodded to Donovan, signaling him to lock the heavy glass conference room door. The formal atmosphere instantly turned tense when he refused to hand over the expected payment check. Instead of completing the property transaction, he activated the ceiling projector, filling the blank wall with a detailed spreadsheet of Mariah's credit card statements. The financial records clearly displayed countless luxury purchases made with money that had supposedly been reserved for my father's heart medication over the past several months. Without wasting another second, I pressed play on my device. The cruel insults and mocking comments from both women echoed throughout the soundproof conference room. Every word about their financial scheme shattered the illusion of love and loyalty they had carefully maintained for years. Their reactions were almost unbelievable. Catherine's face instantly lost all color as she lunged toward the computer, desperately trying to unplug the power cord. Donovan stepped in immediately, warning her about the consequences of destroying legal evidence. Mariah, meanwhile, sat completely frozen in her expensive leather chair, trembling as her carefully crafted image fell apart before everyone in the room. The most heartbreaking moment came when I looked at my father. He sat motionless, struggling to breathe after hearing his own wife openly insult his failing health. Realizing that his illness had been used as nothing more than a tool for financial gain shattered his trusting heart within seconds. "Catherine, did you really curse my failing health and use my life to trick my oldest daughter out of this money?" Dad asked in a trembling voice. "Nicholas, you're misunderstanding everything." "Please let me explain. I only wanted to secure a better future for Mariah," Catherine cried, desperately reaching for his hands. Before she could continue, Donovan slammed the private investigation file about the fake medical clinic onto the glass table. He calmly stated that her signature on the medical commitment form had completed the evidence needed for a federal fraud case. The realization struck her instantly. She understood that her own signature had permanently sealed her fate, leaving no room to escape. That was the final breaking point for my father. He slowly stood from his chair and looked at Catherine with complete disgust. Pulling his hands away from her desperate grip, he turned his back on both crying women. Then he walked toward my side of the table, making it clear that he had chosen where he stood and permanently cutting all ties with the two people who had betrayed him. Exactly 48 hours after that shocking revelation inside the downtown law office, a completely new order was established with absolute ruthlessness alongside undeniable finality. Donovan officially served a severe legal ultimatum directly to both women, aggressively threatening an immediate federal lawsuit unless Catherine, alongside Mariah, fully returned every single embezzled dollar stolen throughout the previous months. The undeniable threat of federal prison time effectively crushed their remaining arrogant attitudes into absolute dust without any mercy. Dad absolutely refused to tolerate this cruel marital betrayal by swiftly filing unilateral divorce papers at the local courthouse that exact same afternoon. He immediately kicked Catherine alongside Mariah out of his house onto the street, with absolutely zero shared assets to their greedy names. A devastating financial chain reaction forcefully crashed down upon Mariah when major banking institutions permanently froze all her emergency credit limits without any prior warning. She was suddenly forced to personally drown under massive toxic debt caused by her luxurious lifestyle because my generous financial supply was completely severed forever. She ultimately lost her precious designer bags to aggressive debt collectors while facing the harsh reality of living without a wealthy sponsor. Meanwhile, I proactively established an independent medical trust fund exclusively managed by Donovan to strictly ensure direct payments for legitimate health care services required by Dad. This highly secure financial arrangement also allowed me to permanently block every possible communication method from those two villains desperately attempting to beg for my forgiveness. Finally, removing those toxic parasites hiding behind fake familial bonds from my personal life brought me an overwhelming sense of ultimate freedom mixed with profound relief. I felt incredibly proud for utilizing pure logic alongside immense legal power to rightfully protect my hard-earned assets from those domestic predators. Moving forward without their constant emotional manipulation hanging over my successful career feels like taking a deep breath of fresh air after drowning for several years. The Revenge Mode channel proudly presents this dramatic story strictly for educational purposes regarding the establishment of healthy personal boundaries. We aim to convey a powerful message about handling severe family crises through pure logic alongside strict legal frameworks instead of yielding to emotional blackmail. Evaluating the situation objectively reveals how the female protagonist decisively protected herself by permanently severing all toxic relationships without any hesitation. The villains ultimately suffered the inevitable harsh consequences resulting directly from their own malicious decisions to financially abuse a generous relative. True justice was firmly served through meticulous documentation alongside unwavering determination during the entire legal confrontation. Looking back at this terrible chain of events reveals several profound lessons regarding the true nature of familial relationships versus financial abuse. Blood ties should never serve as a free pass for malicious exploitation or emotional manipulation under any circumstances. The most important lesson involves never letting unwarranted guilt or misplaced compassion cloud your rational judgment when facing completely unreasonable financial demands from anyone. Kindness only truly holds value when it is exclusively directed toward the right people who genuinely appreciate your difficult sacrifices. When confronting the bottomless greed of toxic individuals, utilizing proper legal documents alongside undeniable factual evidence remains the absolute strongest shield to protect yourself alongside the people you genuinely love. Thank you all so much for patiently listening to the dramatic twists of my personal journey until these very final moments. What are your honest opinions regarding this absolutely uncompromising resolution without any possibility for a peaceful reconciliation? Please share exactly how you would personally handle this specific financial crisis in the comments below while subscribing to our channel for more thrilling stories.